That's right. It is a kind of diffuse, loose network of people. But I don't think it's an overstatement to say that in many ways, the one way of understanding it is kind of good old-fashioned white supremacy dressed up and married to a kind of new anti-globalism, and that's what gives it its complexity. That there's kind of both of these things going on at the same time.
Yeah, well, again, I guess, context is always important, and we have seen the images, we're watching them now, the Nazi salutes, praise of Trump at the same time, and so on. They are disturbing, but do you think they are getting, I don't know, outsized attention at the moment? Do you think this group is worthy of the coverage they're getting, relative to their size?
It's an important question. On the one hand, it was, a couple of hundred people in Washington, D.C., but they were at the Ronald Reagan building in Washington, D.C. And, in addition to the video you showed, we saw them saying America was until this past generation a white country designed for ourselves and our posterity. It's our creation. It's our inheritance. It belongs to us, like very clearly here. But, if it were only that, I think, we could dismiss it. But what we're seeing is, the Southern Poverty Law Center has documented over 700 cases of harassment or intimidation in the week after the election. Just here in my hometown of where I live now in Silver Spring, Maryland, we've seen an Episcopal church that had Spanish services offered was slashed, and on the back of it, it wrote Trump Nation, whites only. So if it were only kind of a handful of people on the fringe, that would be one thing. But we are seeing kind of an emboldened set of grassroots people all over the country. And I think what's most disturbing is that there is this kind of direct link between, Breitbart.com, which, as Steve Bannon himself said, was a platform for the alt-right, who is now at the right hand of Donald Trump. And, in the press release announcing, he was one of the earliest advisors announced to Trump as the chief strategist, along with Reince Priebus as chief of staff. And when that press release went out, actually Bannon's name was listed before Priebus's name. That gives you some idea of the importance.
Yeah, you stole my next question. I mean, the appointment of Steve Bannon, this is a man who proudly says he gave a platform to the alt-right at the Breitbart website. When you see him in a position of considerable power in the Trump administration, what do you think?
Well, I mean, we've never seen anything like it. I mean, I think it is just important to say that someone who is just overtly on the record, said, that his platform to the alt-right, he's on the record saying that it's a laudable political strategy to let the grassroots, quote, turn on the hate as a political tool of getting politicians to sort of move the way that he wants them to move. I mean, this is an incredibly dangerous thing, I think, for someone who has the ear of the president.
Yeah, and he's a man who also said, if the Republican Party doesn't like it, let's take it over. Do you think the Republican Party, inadvertently or not, gave power to this element of American society by playing to the fears of whites in America, particularly older white males, encouraging them to feel threatened by a changing America? Does the party itself bear some responsibility?
Well, one of the things that I sort of studied in my book was this kind of long trend that we're seeing. And, it is true that we are experiencing unprecedented change, both economic, cultural, and demographic in the country that is, creating this atmosphere in the country, but we're reaping some of the consequences really of some long-term political strategies, including the Southern strategy that really began, in the 1970s as the Republican Party tried to peel away white Southern Christians from the Democratic Party, and did this largely successfully. And what that's meant is that the two parties have become one party has become very homogeneous, a kind of white Christian party, the Republican Party, and the other party's become sort of very diverse. And this creates some really dysfunctional dynamics for a democracy that really, hopes that a presidential election will bring forth a candidate that could be a president for everyone.
And just quickly, will demographics beat the alt-right? I mean, as I say, it's basically a white group. The odds aren't on their side when it comes to how America is changing.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, what I really